In the last lesson we have seen the magic of the automatic camera mode and how well it works, but now it's time to take control and we will explore the manual camera mode. I've still the project open with our flight route from Madrid to Stockholm. I will go back to camera, and here we have very few parameters because we are still at automatic camera with the side glance 70 degrees profile. And I will switch now to manual camera, and don't be afraid of the many parameters that appeared now. We will discover them step by step. By now we will first have a look at those two camera points that Vasco da Gama created here, and they look exactly the same as in the last lesson with automatic camera mode. And the reason for this is simply that when we change from automatic to manual camera mode, Vasco da Gama uses the same camera points as manual camera points, so they look exactly the same. The only difference is that we can alter all the parameters. This ensures that we always have a reasonable starting point to begin with. Now we will ignore all the parameters here on the right completely, and we will work only with the mouse. We are at the starting point of our route, and if I click now with the left mouse button and move the mouse to the left or to the right, it seems like that I'm spinning the globe and moving up and down, just like in the editor, but in fact now I'm moving the position of the camera. If I press the right mouse button and move the mouse, then I don't alter the position of the camera, but the viewing angle. So if I move the mouse left and right, I turn the camera, and if I move the mouse up or down, the camera will look more down or up. So I can move now to another position. For example, I can get closer to our airplane on the right side. So now we have a nice close-up view on our airplane. And now I have changed the camera settings for the first camera point here. And before I can continue, I have to save these changes. And that I do with this button here, Set Camera Settings. I click it, and now my changes are saved, and Vasco da Gama has recalculated here the thumbnail. You can see this represents now what we are seeing in the work window. And now I jump to the next camera point, and I will change the view here as well. Now I will move here to the other side of the airplane, like this for example, and now I have altered the camera settings for this camera point, and I will set them with the same button. So I will jump back to the first camera point, and I will scroll now through our animation, and we can see how the camera moves from one camera point to the other. You remember the automatic camera mode always maintained the head object in the center of the screen, and in manual mode we are completely free. We can even look in another direction, and if we zoom in very closely, our head object may disappear out of the window and reappear at some other point. So this depends a little bit on what we would like to show. Vasco da Gama calculates nicely all the camera settings from one camera point to the next camera point. We define the stop points for the camera, and Vasco da Gama does all the other work. And if I'm not really satisfied with a look at the second camera point, then I can alter it. I can move the camera a little bit more down, looking up. and simply set the camera settings, and I can go directly to the preview window and have a look at my animation. And I think this looks quite nice. I will now jump back to the root editor, and I will insert 2 additional waypoints here in our route. Let's introduce 1 point over here, and I will drag it a little bit to the right, and another point here, and I will drag it a little bit to the left to make the route a little bit more interesting. So now I jump back to the camera mode, and remember we have now 4 waypoints in our route. Back to camera, we have still only 2 camera points. And the reason is very simple. We are at manual camera mode, and therefore we are responsible. Now nothing happens automatically. One way to solve this problem, to incorporate the 2 additional points, is to switch back to automatic camera mode. Vasco da Gama now warns me that all camera settings that I have done until now will be lost, because from now on the automatic takes control. In this case I accept this with yes. And now the 2 new supporting points appear as well, but you have to make sure that here in the setting with camera points every point is selected, because when you select only stopover points you get only the starting point and the end point of the route and not the 2 points in between. So I will switch to every point, and now I have all 4 points here as camera points. I will select another camera profile. I will use the 180-degree side glance. So now I have all my 4 camera points with my desired profile, and now I switch back to manual camera mode. Everything remains the same, but now every camera point is editable. So now I jump to the first camera point, and I alter the position of the camera, because I will have a look at our airplane from the right, like this for example. I save the camera settings, and now I jump to the next camera point, and here I change the position too, and I will have a look from the other side. And I've set the settings as well. On to the third camera point. I will alter a little bit the angle. I will look from the other side right now, and I will zoom in a little bit like this. And now to the last camera point, and I will have a look from the other side, just a little bit from the ground, zooming in a little bit, maybe like this. I save the settings. So now let's have a look at the preview window and play back our animation, and you can see that our camera flies from one side of the airplane to the other. A little bit strange, a little bit weird, a little bit heavy, but I wanted to show that the camera settings at every camera point can be very different, and the camera can look wherever you want. As you can imagine, when you have more camera points, working with the camera settings can get complex really fast, and there are several tools to help us a little bit. For example, I will jump to the second camera point, and with this button here I can copy the camera settings. I will do it, and now this button, the paste button, has become active, and with this button I can paste these copied camera settings on another camera point. So now I can go to the third camera point and paste the copied camera settings. Now Vasco da Gama gives me the possibility to copy only specific parameters. You see, by default all the parameters are selected. This is the normal situation, but in specific moments you are able to copy only one or two specific parameters. By now I accept with OK with all parameters selected. And now the second and the third camera point will look exactly the same. That means the camera positions are the same, so the camera from camera point 2 up to camera point 3 will not move. The camera stands still, but of course our head object keeps on moving. Let's play it back in the real-time preview. The camera moves until the second camera point, stands still, the plane keeps on moving, and then the camera starts moving again until the fourth camera point. So the copy function of the camera settings is very useful, but with this function you can not only copy the settings from one point to another point, you can copy them. I will do it again. I copy the camera settings, and then as destination I can not only select one camera point, but I can select several. I've selected the third camera point, and now I press the Shift button, and so I can select the fourth camera point as well. And when I press now the Insert button and accept all the parameters with OK, the settings are copied from the second to the third and fourth camera point. There is another interesting function in the toolbar here on the left corner. This button we know already from the editor, and in the editor it sets the viewing point of the editor to a position from the GPS database. And here in the camera editor it works in the same manner. It brings the GPS position from the database into the camera view. So in this lesson we have learned two important things. The camera doesn't have to look always at our head object, it really can look elsewhere. And the position of the camera doesn't have to follow always the head object. So the camera is really an independent object in the world of Vasco da Gama, and in the next lesson we will have a special look at this particular detail.